Far different from the images at Columbine High School, and yet just as frightening, were the home videos made by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold in the weeks, days, even hours before they went on their rampage. The full tapes have never been made public, but in December, the sheriff's office invited a handful of reporters to take a look. Last week, we asked some of those reporters to tell us what the tapes were like.
The tape that was made in the basement of Eric Harris's home started out with them sitting in the armchairs and talking back and forth about their hatred for other human beings.
Harris was sitting in his chair holding this sawed-off shotgun. He wasn't just holding it, he was fondling it, he was playing with it. He had named it. He had named it Arlene.
He kissed his shotgun at one point as he's talking, and he points it at the camera.
And he said, "Do you believe in God?" Bam, 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 bam. Everybody in the room, there was a gasp in the room when we saw that. This was planned.
It was knowing that all of this went into what they did that just was stunning. And to actually see this kind of video diary of before we went and did the deed was powerful. It was very eerie.
They talked about how much they hated humanity and how worthless human beings were. And they included themselves among that. They said, you all need to die, and we need to die too.
It was almost as if, they were going to a video game contest. How many can we kill? How many can we knock off? It was this detachment.
How laid back they were about all this. How sort of indifferent, as if there was a disconnect between this reality and the fantasy life that they had. And that was driven home when they talked about coming back in the afterlife, if there was one, and coming back in a doom room would be an ideal thing for them.
He talked about dying and said that he hoped he would be at the third level or at one of the levels of the doom game. That's where his heaven was.
They got the camera off of the tripod, and Klebold held it, and Harris gave a demonstration of everything that was in his room.
That was quite amazing to have him just open a couple of drawers or pull some books back and reach in and pull out some of these little CO2 cartridge grenades, essentially, that he had made, and other pipe bombs that he had.
At one point, Harris is telling the story about how his mom walked in his room, and the shotgun was close by, the sawed-off shotgun, and under something. And he was mocking her for not having checked the room. If you'd just checked the room, you'd have found this. And then he said they didn't have a clue.
But they had some compassion in them because they talked about the pain that their parents were going to go through.
He said, quoting Shakespeare, "Good wombs hath bore bad sons." He quoted that about himself. And I think that is really the point. I mean, that's the exclamation point on this whole thing. He hated himself, and Klebold hated himself. Klebold says, "I'm going to a better place. I didn't like life too much. I'm going to a better place." And he says this as he's suiting up, as he's getting his things ready.
Minutes, half an hour maybe before it all happened, putting their gear on, getting ready to go. Very businesslike, very cold, very calculated. No more of the swagger, no more of the, the teenage joking around and so forth. One of them said, "It's Judgment Day."
Klebold harbored as much hate as Harris did. These two guys were in this together. There's no question. There was no follower and leader.
I think everyone on earth wishes that, wish they would have explained more and stood to answer for their crimes instead of being, mad in the end, mad and cowardly, because how can you not be to do all of that and then kill yourself?